On behalf of the Indian Sociological Society, I, C. Raghava Reddy, with the Department of Sociology, University of Hyderabad, welcome you to this interactive session with Prof.E.Hari babu. This interview is part of a larger initiative of the Indian Sociological Society to document the intellectual journeys of distinguished sociologists who have shaped the discipline in India. Through these conversations, we aim to preserve the lived experiences, methodological innovations, and disciplinary reflections of scholars whose work has extended the horizons of sociology, both within academia and in public life. Today, we are honored to speak with Prof.Hari babu, whose contributions to science, technology, and society studies in general, biotechnology in particular, and research methodology have left a lasting imprint on Indian sociology. I welcome Prof.E.Hari babu for this interactive session, and we are thankful to make this session very important one for all of us, for all the sociology fraternity in India. So, before we proceed with your interactive session, sir, I give you a brief profile of your academic journey into sociology. Prof.E.Hari babu is a renowned sociologist whose academic journey spans premier institutions such as IIT Bombay, IIT Kanpur, and the University of Hyderabad. He served as head Department of Sociology on several occasions. He also held the position of Dean, School of Social Sciences, University of Hyderabad. Professor Hari babu was also Pro-Vice Chancellor and in charge Vice Chancellor of University of Hyderabad. He is widely recognized for pioneering work in the sociological dimensions of biotechnology and for advancing science, technology, and society studies in India at a time when the field was still advancing or emerging. As a teacher, he has mentored generations of students in research methods, particularly survey research, and has published extensively in both Indian and international journals. His scholarship is marked by intellectual rigor, methodological clarity, and a deep commitment to interdisciplinary inquiry. He served as an adjunct senior fellow at Research and Information System for Developing Countries, New Delhi, which is an autonomous policy research institute under the Ministry of External Affairs. His work at RIS focused on the intersections of science, technology, and society, particularly in the context of agricultural biotechnology, inclusive innovation, and policy frameworks. Professor Hari babu made a pioneering contribution to the concept of cognitive empathy within the context of interdisciplinary scientific collaboration, particularly in agricultural biotechnology. His influential essay, published in the Journal of Biosciences, explored how cognitive empathy can bridge the divide between basic scientists like molecular biologists and applied scientists such as plant breeders, working on rice crop improvement in India. His scholarly work includes studies on genetically modified crops, DNA barcoding, and epistemology in social research, often cited in journals like Sociological Bulletin and Asian Biotechnology and Development Review. This contribution remains one of the earliest and most thoughtful applications of cognitive empathy in Indian sociology of science. It not only advanced science, technology, and society scholarship, but also offered a framework for ethical and inclusive innovation in biotechnology. Professor Hari babu also guided several MPhil and PhD scholars over his career, throughout his career. I welcome you to this session, sir. Let's begin with your journey into sociology, how you entered into the discipline called sociology, and basically we would like to know what drew you to the discipline during your time at IIT Bombay or prior to joining IIT Bombay as doctoral student.
Thank you, Professor Raghava Reddy. I also appreciate the initiative of Indian Sociological Society to record the academic experiences of senior teachers who made some contributions into their own field. It's a very good initiative. I'm sure students will be able to see what kind of efforts went on to do research in a particular field, which, as you said, still is at a developing stage in our country, right? Thank you very much. So regarding my journey into sociology, I did my master's degree in social anthropology from Sri Venkateswara University. Then I joined IIT Bombay for a PhD degree. IIT Bombay, they started PhD degree. We were the second batch of students there. And it was a great experience doing PhD at IIT Bombay, which is considered as an institute of national importance. And my PhD topic was actually related to migration studies. Basically, I studied migration of handloom weavers to Bombay who worked in textile mills for several decades, right? So that was the first kind of a contribution I made to understand the patterns of migration from Telangana to other parts of the country. And one more thing I would like to mention is IIT Bombay, as I said, is an institute of national importance, and that gives a lot of exposure, a different kind of a quality of exposure to students who pursue their degrees there, because I had interaction with lots of faculty members in other social sciences, because I was registered for PhD in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, which had philosophers, which had economists, psychologists, sociologists, and English literature people. So that was a very different kind. I could see what goes on in different disciplines, and we used to attend their seminars and so on. So that gave us an opportunity to understand what are the concerns of other social sciences. And also we interacted with a lot of engineering and science students, especially in the hostels. So that used to be a very good experience, that we learned a lot from the students of engineering and science students. So that way I was exposed to what goes on in science and engineering departments in terms of teaching and research.
Yeah.
So that really helped me to get into this teaching of science, technology, society studies later on at IIT Kanpur. Then I moved to IIT Kanpur. After getting my PhD degree, I moved to IIT Kanpur in September 1980. From then onwards, I was teaching courses at undergraduate level and also graduate level. Undergraduate courses were typically basic sociology and advanced electives for BTech students. And I also taught PhD level courses on research methodology and sociological theory to the department students. So that way it was a very rich experience of teaching BTech students who are very bright and also very they can ask different very challenging questions. Experience in handling questions from students who are not sociology students.
Yeah.
So that was a very good experience. And IIT Kanpur is a great institution in the sense of, in terms of teaching and research. So it had a democratic tradition of teaching and also less hierarchical relations between junior teachers and senior professors and so on. So let me give you an example that if a course is being taught by an assistant professor, that course also had tutorials and which were handled by professors, right? So that way it breaks down the hierarchy among the faculty members. That I learned, that I thought is an excellent kind of tradition that was set up by IIT Kanpur.
Yeah. So later on you moved to University of Hyderabad,
Yes.
somewhere in 90s.
Yes.
So and you superannuated from the Department of Sociology.
Yeah.
And you held several positions, not only as head but also dean.
Yeah.
Not only the dean of School of Social Sciences but also other schools, and also you contributed immensely to the university administration as pro-vice chancellor and in charge vice chancellor of University of Hyderabad. So particularly, how was your experience as a teacher in the Department of Sociology in the University of Hyderabad, particularly introducing the courses with relation to science, technology and society studies?
I joined as a Department of Sociology way back in 1990. So sociology already was a recognized department in the country because we had some eminent teachers and researchers. So I started teaching courses again here, research methods course and sometime in classical sociological theory. And later on, I started teaching science, technology, society course, which I initiated in IIT Kanpur. And I continue to teach that course for last 30 years or so. So that helped me to gain some knowledge, insights into how society and science and technology interact with each other, how they shape each other. So this also was the kind of foundation for the kind of research I did and my students carried out in the Department of Sociology. Initially, there was some kind of hesitation on the part of the faculty members in terms of what kind of course are you teaching. There is no sociology in this. But later on, things proved to be different because sociological dimensions of science and technology became very, very important with the advances in information technology, biotechnology, and of course, recent AI. One more thing I would like to mention here is at the University of Hyderabad, we developed a couple of courses on science and technology. One, science, society and culture, technology, culture and society, with collaboration from faculty members in the Department of Philosophy. They're very bright teachers who are also interested in this area. So we co-taught these two courses for 10 years or so. In the process, we also started a Center for Knowledge, Culture and Innovation Studies, basically trying to connect science and technology with society. And I would like to mention that science, technology, society studies lies at the intersection of philosophy, history of science, and to some extent economics. And that really helped us to gain deeper understanding of what goes on in science and how science is related to the external world like society, culture. Earlier, the conception was scientific knowledge is universal, objective, and atemporal, not connected with society, it's autonomous activity. But later on, after Dr. Kuhn's study on scientific revolutions and the post-Kuhnian sociology of scientific studies show that the divide between the internal world of science consisting of theories, models, concepts, and the external world of science, that is society, economy, culture, they are not rigid. The divide is not rigid, but it is porous, permeable. So there is a two-way traffic between the two worlds of science. So that is also an important kind of understanding that we gained, and this helped us in pursuing our research and helping students to pursue research in this area. Now, around 1998, I got a research project from Rockefeller Foundation, New York, under its International Rice Research Program, which under which the Rockefeller Foundation gave grants to a lot of molecular biologists, plant breeders, pathologists, plant pathologists, and so on. So the Rockefeller Foundation was interested in finding out how these groups, research groups, have been collaborating and how they've been interacting with each other. So they asked me, or Rockefeller Foundation suggested to me that I should take up a project to look at this interaction. That's how I got a Rockefeller Foundation grant to carry out this research for about 2.5 years. So this really enabled me, or this gave me an opportunity to interact with scientists, molecular biologists, breeders, plant breeders, pathologists, and so on. And initially they resisted in interacting with me because they said, what do you know about science? What do you know about biology? Let me say this here, I had undergraduate degree in biology. That really helped me to get into this field, right? Of course, that biology is very old, but anyway, it did not intimidate me. I told scientists that, look, the kind of work you are doing is important for society. That's why I would like to know what kind of work is going on. That really established rapport with them. Then after that, I interacted with them for about 2.5 years. I attended their annual meetings, interacted with them in outside the conference rooms. I attended conferences of people, scientists involved in this rice biotechnology program. So that is how my concern with rice production, rice improvement, rice crop improvement started. And this enabled me to publish a few papers in this area, which are highly cited, as Raghava Reddy is mentioning, that a paper on cognitive empathy. That paper focuses on how molecular biologists who are doing basic science in the laboratories and plant breeders who do the research in the field situation interact. One molecular biologist said, see, plant breeders don't know molecular biology techniques. And one plant breeder said, molecular biologists don't know what the field research is like. Basically, let me recall, molecular biologists complained that plant breeders did not know the molecular biology techniques, whereas plant breeders were complaining that molecular biologists did not know the field research, field situation. So that was the kind of initial apprehension between the two groups, but later on they sort of, through conferences, through kind of informal meetings, they come to a kind of consensus on how to interact, how to collaborate. So this is what cognitive empathy means. You understand the knowledge system of others from their point of view, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it helps in developing a common kind of a shared understanding of the phenomenon, which helps them to collaborate. Yeah. So that was an important kind of movement in the application of biotechnology for agricultural improvement, and that really was interesting. I used to attend the annual meetings of Indian scientists who had an organization called National Rice Biotechnology Network. So that I attended their annual meetings. In fact, at one point, one of the scientists said, I should go and give a lecture to their department. I did that in Baroda, right? It's a molecular biology department. So what are the concerns of sociologists when you focus on science and society? And what is the internal kind of a dynamics of science studies, scientists and scientific practice? That was appreciated. I gave lectures at least 2 or 3 departments, in science departments.
Yeah.
So that way they started appreciating the work of social scientists. That I thought was a positive gain for sociological community. Now they are much more open to talk to sociologists about their research.
Yeah, that's a very significant contribution, sir, in terms of the growth of sociology as a discipline in India and its relevance in the present context. Now we are in the era of AI, and the sociological understanding of AI is very, very important. So how do you see AI and the interface with sociologists or sociologists' understanding of AI, so that society could benefit from the applications of AI, and where AI can be applied, and how it contributes to progress?
Yeah, interesting question. Before I answer this, I would like to mention that the notion of cognitive empathy is important in bridging two systems of knowledge. For example, traditional system of knowledge and modern knowledge. I think, how do they see each other's knowledge system? So if they can understand the knowledge system of each other, then they'll be able to produce more significant knowledge. So that is another point. The point you are raising about artificial intelligence. See, artificial intelligence is a product of several disciplines like information theory, there is cognitive psychology, the material science, and several other disciplines which contribute to the artificial intelligence. See, artificial intelligence basically means that machines mimic human cognition. Machines try to do whatever human beings have been doing. If you really want to understand what it is, earlier we are used to robots. A robo is a machine which mimics motor abilities of human beings, right? They don't really look, they don't follow, they don't really imitate cognitive functions, whereas they do perform motor functions.
Yeah.
Whereas artificial intelligence mimics human cognition. That is, it works like a human being, right? That's why when you are able to ask a question, to pose a question to AI, like ChatGPT and so on, ask a question that, can you give me summary of what I've submitted, a paper or a draft? It will do it, summarize according to the way you want it to summarize. So that is what we mean by cognitive function. And AI has applications in almost every discipline, right? For example, how does AI help in the production of knowledge in social sciences, right? How AI can be applied in agriculture, how AI can be applied in public health, how AI can be applied in, for example, industrial production. So a whole lot of openings are going to be available for the application of AI. And this is where it's important to understand AI from a sociologist perspective or social studies of science perspective, right?
Yeah. So, in this context, what is your suggestion to the budding sociologists or students of sociology at undergraduate level, postgraduate level, and at doctoral level about researching or studying about the interface between society and science and technology from a sociology perspective? So, what is your suggestion, and how as to how they look at this interface?
See, let me say this, science and technology and society, they shape each other, they contribute to each other, they try to shape the society, social order, social institutions, right? And again, society also shapes science and technology. It is this kind of two-way interaction which is important to understand. A sociology student can really look at the dynamics of this interaction, how the interaction takes place over time, and how each one influences the other. That's the idea of looking at, of doing research in the area of science, technology, society studies. See, for example, let me give in sociology, our concern is to understand society, social stratification, culture, and so on. So, and ultimately, we also would like to see a better society. We would like to improve social relations, social institutions for the good of humanity, right? So, given these concerns, how does one use AI to promote or to achieve these concerns, to see that these concerns are answered, right? So, for example, things like equity, that's an important question in sociology, social sciences in general. Equity means to what extent one has access to new technology, to what extent these technologies are affordable for people. These are the important questions which we should really raise in the context of AI also, right? To what extent AI is affordable, to what extent it is available to all.
Yeah.
How does one go about seeing that equity issues are answered by the AI, and what kind of policies are required to see that this equity is achieved, right?
Yeah.
So that is an important question. Similarly, gender relations. How will gender relations be affected by artificial intelligence in various sectors? How can one use AI to understand women's health, dynamics of women's health? These are important questions. I'm sure things are already happening in the context of these domains, but it has to take a proper roots in society and see that this knowledge is available to all. In the same way as we have seen that information technology is available to all. For example, the digitization of the economy. For example, the use of digital currency, right? These are important questions. Now they have really percolated down to society. For example, every vendor even small scale vendor, fruit vendor, flower vendor, they use QR codes to transact, right? You don't have to pay cash, you pay through Google Pay or Phone Pay, whatever it is, by using that QR code.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of decentralization that occurred, and almost everybody uses QR code today. Today you may forget your wallet, purse, but you cannot forget your phone when you go to buy something, right?
Yes, yes.
So that's how it has penetrated, and I think it's a good thing to see that everybody uses it, right? For example, similarly, cell phones. Cell phones have penetrated every sector of the society, every section of the society, and it's a very useful way of communicating with people. It reduces the commute. If you want to go and meet earlier people, you have to go to their place. But today you don't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
You reduce commuting, reduce your expenses for commuting and so on. That's a great kind of facility, but there are also risks with this, right?
Yeah.
For example, this cell phone can be abused by people. People can commit fraud by using cell phone. One has to be careful.
Yeah.
One has to be really alert about this. And there must be some mechanism of regulating these technologies, controlling this fraud and so on, right?
Sure.
That's very important. Yeah.
Sir, taking cues from your reflections on AI and its impact and how sociologists can study, when we look at the introduction of computers in India, all desktops opened in English,
Yeah.
particularly in India.
Yeah.
When compared to Europe, even a small country in Europe,
Yeah.
the laptops or desktops opened in their respective mother
Languages,
tongues.
right.
So this has created the impact of this kind of introduction of laptops or computer desktops in English. The impact is visible throughout India, particularly in rural areas,
Yeah.
where students are keen to study in English medium only.
Yeah.
So sociologists actually missed looking at this very critically when it was introduced.
Correct.
So hope these kind of critical understanding of technology by sociologists will definitely help, as you are suggesting,
Yeah.
to bring equity and equality
Yes.
to every section of the population.
Yeah.
So in this regard, what do you suggest to new generation of sociological researchers, what they should focus and how they should focus on in their research with relation to science, technology, and society?
Yeah, it's a good question. For example, you start with a sociological concern, right? Sociological framework. For example, given these concepts in sociology, given these sociological concerns, how are we going to promote technology? How are we going to make it easily accessible, affordable? And what kind of policy frameworks are needed to achieve this equity? And also, what kind of framework is required to regulate this technology, govern this technology? Now, unless you govern, some kind of institutional controls are there, this technology may be abused, misused by fraudulent people.
The way we have seen in biotechnology.
Yeah,
Biotechnology
same
regulations.
problem. Biotechnology also, there is a risk involved. How to minimize the risk, right? How does one go about minimizing risk? What kind of measures are required? So, for example, some people say genetically modified seeds, modified food is risky for human consumption. So, what is the risk involved? How does one minimize this risk? Is there a way of minimizing the risk, or there is no way to reduce the risk? So, these are the important questions that sociologists can raise.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's very, very important. First, if institutional controls of technology, then risk management, risk reduction, these are important questions that one can raise legitimately.
Sir, moving out from the specific focus on science, technology, and society as a specialization within sociology, how do we see this specialization or the theme area for sociologist focus, along with other themes like caste, gender, religion, etc.? So, where do we place STS within this domain, broader domain of sociology, which basically focuses on gender, caste, religion, etc.
See, these institutions like religion, gender relations, and
Caste,
caste, and so on, see, they're also subject to influence of scientific knowledge, technological knowledge, technological practices. Now, we have to see how this knowledge, scientific knowledge or technological knowledge, influences gender relations,
for example.
influences caste relations, intercaste relations, influences the, for example, relations between different religious groups within religion. So I think these are all important social institutions. One should really look at what happens, what kind of influence that these new technologies, new scientific knowledge exert on these institutions.
So, intersectional approach is very much essential.
Intersectionality of these institutions
Different
and science and technology, right? It's very, very important. So, when we talk of equity, we also talk of equity among men and women, equity among different caste groups, right? So, all these are important questions, right?
Yes. Sir, among several of your publications, what publications you place on a higher level or which are important to study for younger sociologists?
Most of the articles are important, but I would like to mention two articles which are of a theoretical nature. One, as we've been discussing on cognitive empathy, is an important concept I sort of use to describe the interaction between two systems of knowledge. The second one, I wrote another paper where what is it that makes a particular technology acceptable or particular technology adaptable to society. These are, I started with interests and meanings, right? See, human relations, human society is organized along the interests of different groups. We pursue different interests. Scientists pursue their professional interests. Farmers pursue their agriculture with a goal of making some profit apart from taking care of themselves. So industry wants to make profit, right? So all these are concerns that that are important, and so these are interests. These are different interest groups which try to take forward technology in that particular direction. For example, if an economic class which has resources like land, other means of production, they would like to pursue technology as to what extent they can maximize their benefit or profit, right?
Profits, yeah.
So similarly, in terms of meaning, people attach meaning. Social world is world of meanings.
Yeah.
So that's what sociology teaches us. Our social world is a world of meanings. We attach meanings to our objects, practices, events, and our religious practices and so on, right? So how do these meanings affect the acceptance or rejection of a particular technology?
Yeah.
That's very, very important. If you look at the biotechnology today, agriculture biotechnology, genetic modification of food, this debate has reached an impasse. It's not moving forward because the technology developers did not look at the systems of meaning that people attach to their food. What do they consider as food? This food is not merely fuel, but it also people attach a lot of importance to meanings to food, right? So this part has to be also looked at by technology developers.
Yeah.
Then perhaps they will be able to reach a kind of understanding and agreement with people so that they accept these technologies.
Yeah.
Because we have not focused on this, there is an impasse. It's a deadlock, right?
Yeah.
Scientists now realize that's very important to have social science inputs into the technological development. And now some institutes are some institute realize this, and then they introduce courses like philosophy of science and philosophy of technology, like NICERS, like National Institutes of Science, Scientific and Educational Research, they introduce these courses now. I think slowly they will understand and realize this.
Yeah.
Some projects today insist on social scientists participate in scientific projects, technological projects.
Particularly sociologies.
Yes. So some design departments in software industry also employ sociologists to see how design can be made so that people accept these designs, right? So I think these things are happening already, but it should happen on much more large scale, right?
In social scientists' contribution to get the moratorium on GM brinjal, for example, is also immense.
Yes.
When the government went about GM brinjal application and release, so civil society with the inputs from social scientists protested against it.
Yeah.
And you know very well about it, and you are associated with some of these central civil society organizations as well.
Yeah. So it's because they would like to see in what way it's going to affect their health, number one. In what way it's going to affect their meaning system they associate with food, right? So it's very important kind of debate that has to be addressed by scientists and policymakers and so on, right? So I think that's where we stand. That's why it's important now. People recognize the importance of social science inputs into technological developments, innovations, and so on, right?
Yeah. Sir, again, particularly there is a peculiar situation in India wherein in South India sociology or sociology in particular or social science in general is not taken up by younger generations, or their parents also don't show much interest, and that's why we see that there is a declining enrollment in terms of students taking up sociology courses at undergraduate level and postgraduate level. But whereas in North India it is still the demand for sociology is there. So how do you see sociology, particularly within South India context, along with other STEM courses like science, technology, engineering, medicine courses?
See, basically in South Indian universities, sociology was not introduced at the undergraduate level for a long time, even now. Only at the level of master's degree you have sociology programs. So that creates some kind of a situation where people don't know about sociology, that a discipline like sociology exists. Right? So it must be introduced at undergraduate level and master's level extensively, number one. Number two is why in South India there is this kind of lack of interest to pursue social sciences, especially sociology, is that they have not been exposed to this discipline. Okay? That's the one reason.
Yeah.
So the STEM education, as you just now mentioned, STEM education means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? So these disciplines focus on material world, right? They try to understand the material world, and with the idea of using the output of these sciences for human betterment, using the knowledge of these disciplines to apply in social context, societal context, for some utilitarian purpose, whatever, benefits, understanding, new innovations, and so on. But the point is, the STEM education also must look at social world, right? Without looking at social worlds, simply trying to produce innovations may not be acceptable by society. Right?
Exactly.
So that's why STEM education must create space for social sciences also in the emphasis on STEM education.
Yes.
Right?
So,
that's my view.
Yeah, we also often wonder, for example, IITs have set standards in terms of starting departments of humanities and social sciences.
Yes.
But whereas in South India you have numerous engineering colleges, several engineering colleges and private universities, but in all these engineering colleges there is no department of humanities and social sciences. Particularly humanities is there, but not social
Economics
sciences.
they may have.
Economics they have, English they have, mathematics they have, but not social sciences.
Yeah.
So, how do you see this? Particularly, what do you say on non-incorporation of sociology as a subject for all engineering students, B.Tech, BE students in all private and government colleges in South India?
See, the problem again is related to lack of exposure to social sciences, sociology, right, among the students. And once you start teaching at undergraduate level, students will see opportunities for sociologists and also what kind of field they can enter into.
Their worldview changes.
The worldview changes, they understand others, number one. They also see opportunities for employment, right? See, today opportunities are wide open for sociology students, as I mentioned, even in industry,
Yes.
HR departments, R&D departments, design departments, they are employing sociologists, right?
Yeah.
So I think students should be told about these opportunities. They are never told.
Yes.
So all the time they say, okay, you join either teaching or civil service or NGO sector. There are many more opportunities. If you go to US today, software industries, design departments employ sociologists to advise them how to sort of see that this innovation is socially acceptable, how to make it acceptable to society, right? I think there are several opportunities which it's our job to tell the students that about these opportunities, right?
Yes, sir. Again, within the social sciences, where do you place sociology vis-a-vis political science, economics, anthropology, history? So, where do you see the place of sociology among these social sciences, or how is that kind of evolving relationship between these?
See, I'm sure as a sociologist you know that sociology, for lack of a better term, I would call it generic science, right? It focuses on the interrelations between economy, polity, culture,
Including
and, of course,
philosophy.
society and so on, right? And of course, philosophy is there.
Yeah,
The intellectual inputs to sociology first came from philosophy, right?
philosophy, yes.
For example, the theories of knowledge like empiricist theory of knowledge is epistemological tradition that has influenced sociological research for a long time, right? The second thing I would like to mention is that being a generic science, it tries to look at how political institutions, economic institutions, social institutions are related and what is the dynamics, what is the kind of change in one institution brings about changes in other institutions. That's very crucial for understanding the dynamics of society, how society moves from one stage to another. I think whereas political scientists operate or focus on political institutions, politics in society and so on, and sometimes they do sort of take insights from sociology.
Yeah.
For example, Max Weber produced an enormous amount of work in which connects sociology and political science, sociology and economics and so on. I think these interconnections are important. I think that's the role sociology plays. It's also our job to see how these institutions are interconnected and how they evolve over time, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, one last question. Why is it that sociology is not taken seriously by policymakers?
Yeah.
In particular, and state in general? We see economists playing an important role in making policy suggestions. To a great extent, political scientists playing an important role. Even anthropologists are playing their role in terms of contributing to studies on certain tribes or other societies. So, why is it that there is a kind of gap with relation to sociologists in terms of these engagement with state and policy making?
Yeah. For example, policy making is an eclectic kind of area, right? They draw inputs from various disciplines, right? So in that context, as you rightly said, economics people play an important role because they think by quantifying phenomenon, they can change society. The quantity itself is a goal, right? Quantification itself is a goal, and they think that numbers speak for themselves. But there's also a saying that numbers can be made to speak for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So policymakers have not really looked at sociology discipline in terms of its contribution, potential contribution to policy making. And that's why today we are stuck. As I gave the example of genetic modification of food, because they have not taken into account social inputs, sociological inputs, like in terms of meaning systems, they are not able to move forward, right? There is an impasse. So it is in this context we need inputs from social sciences, sociology and anthropology. That's very, very important. And people are now recognizing this gap in their understanding and trying to see how to accommodate sociological insights into policy making. Right?
Yeah. So with your rich experience spanning over 4 decades and more, what is your suggestion to the faculty of sociology as well as sociology researchers in India?
See, first of all, teaching of sociology has to be reoriented in the changing context. We can't do the same kind of sociology that we were doing 30, 40 years ago. In some universities, the syllabus remains unchanged for decades. That has to change. And I think it's very important for teachers to formulate courses, design courses, develop content, course content, and also teach the students and also evaluate them in terms of their performance, right?
Yeah.
So that will really help students to keep themselves abreast of the latest developments in the literature, latest developments in terms of how sociologists are reacting to changing situations, what are the challenges that sociologists are addressing in terms of understanding these changes, and how does one really make contribution to make society a better society and so on. So it's very, very important to do this. So that's why syllabus must be revised periodically. And faculty revised, updated. Faculty must be given the freedom to design courses, develop content and teach them. Right? Then they can incorporate latest kind of literature every semester they teach. Right? That's very important, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I would see that, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Prof.Hari babu, for sharing your journey, insights and reflections. Your work continues to inspire students, researchers and educators across India and beyond. We hope this conversation will serve as a valuable resource for future generations of sociologists and contribute to a richer understanding of the discipline's evolution in India. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your valuable time.
Thank you, Prof.Raghava Reddy, for inviting me to this discussion session. It was very interesting, and I think that if this will be of helpful to some students, I'll be very happy. Right?
Thank you. Thank you.